Hello and welcome back to GeekVerse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the GeekVerse Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dylan Must. Today I'm joined once again by Kirklin Patzer. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing very good. Yes, thank you so much for having me. Beautiful summer day out, talking about some... I guess this isn't really a summer games thing, is it? It's just a... Or was this Summer Games Fest?
It's not Summer Game Fest. Yeah, we're going to talk about just some of the underrated summer game announcements. Originally, this was going to be like specifically June, but now it's like mid-July. This cast was supposed to happen like 2 weeks ago, so now we're going to call it just the underrated summer announcements. So yeah, summer vibes are in the air, and that's why
Absolutely.
on our YouTube video we have like nice like kind of orange, like kind of nice sunny, sandy names. Yeah, we're good to go there.
I'm underneath my brand new AC. I haven't had AC. I didn't have AC last year. This is and last year was the really bad year. It was like record-breaking heat. So this year I'm nice and comfortable in here. You can see Marco behind me. He's having a good little nap there.
The AC sound like I don't hear it at all, so that's good. It's a nice quiet one.
Yeah, it's absolutely here. Let me give you.
Let's get a little sneak peek of that air conditioner. Oh yeah, look at that. Juicy.
It's one of those little things. You can like change the angle too, so I could have it pointing right at me in those really hot months. Oh, now I screwed up my cam. 1 second here. Do a little repair job.
Yeah, while you fix that. So yeah, we're gonna talk about some of those underrated summer game announcements. We just have a bunch of news to go over today. So we're gonna get right into it. But just a few quick shout outs. Make sure to join our Patreon to get episodes early and ad free. Join the Discord to talk with all of us. The social medias, the Facebooks, Twitter, Instagram, our website. Make sure to leave a review. That does a lot for the show, especially that Sidequest feed that is still kind of new out there. Need some more reviews over there. Thank you to Taylor for doing the thumbnails and Amanda for the music. A couple upcoming casts I want to shout out. So next week you're going to join me again, Kirklin.
Hell yeah.
And starting in a couple weeks here, we're going to be releasing the Lord of the Rings retrospective that we're doing in anticipation for the TV show that's coming out in September. I want to do a games episode for that too, so we're going to dedicate that next week of SideQuest to that. We're just going to talk about some of our favorite Lord of the Rings games from over the years and maybe talk about what we'd like to see from Lord of the Rings in the future. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, any of your favorite games or memories, please send them my way and I'll be happy to include that in the episode. I also want to announce a couple things. So a couple retrospectives we're going to do here that are pretty easy ones because they're only one episode each. But me and you are going to do a Plague Tale because the sequel is coming out in, I already forget, September, October,
I think
November,
it's October. I'll pull that up.
Yeah, pull that up. It's somewhere in that pocket. So me and Kirkland are going to do a retro for that first game. And then God of War Ragnarok, which we'll talk about soon because it got a release date. We're going to do a retro for that. I have not played that game before. I'm very excited to go back and actually play through that. So, and I don't think we ever actually released a review. I was trying to find it on our channel, and I can't find it. So I know Travis played it, and I think you maybe played the 2018 one?
In classic Kirkland fashion.
Right, you started it and then kind of drifted, right?
It's like a demo portion. It was the amount that I played. I was blown away with what was shown. There, I threw the little ticker tape up. You got October 18th is the Plague Tale.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice. And yeah, so God of War is going to be happy. Me and Travis, and I think Saris might join as well for that.
Nice.
So that'll be a fun little trifecta. And who knows, Kirkland, if you want to hop in, just boot it back up again, and you can join us for that. Nothing's stopping
I'll
you.
install it, so it's just if I'm chilling on my PlayStation, I got some time to kill. I'll just boot it up there because I actually that was something that I did last week. Is I just booted up like Red Dead 2. Haven't played that in like well over a year. Man, I was so blown away by that game, and I think they announced that they're doing, in classic Rockstar fashion, they're gonna be doing a next gen version of all the games, just redoing it. And just booting it up, I just have the PS4 version. I also have a new TV compared to last time I ran it, but man, that game looks so good. And it is just it runs so smooth. It's Rockstar, tip my cowboy hat off to them. They're fantastic with what they do. But
I'm in the market for a new TV, so I'll have to talk to you about your TV afterwards and let me know if you'd recommend it. But other casts going on. Check out our 7-year anniversary cast. That's pretty fun. Miss Marvel episodes. We got one more episode tomorrow. Thor: Love and Thunder review was last week. Out of Mana released last week. Episode 9 with Tyler Briggs. So go back and make sure to follow Kirkland over on Twitter at KirklandPats or me at Dylan Must. You can also follow me on Backloggd where you can kind of see the games I've been playing. I sometimes do rankings on there, and I've also been writing just short reviews on there, just maybe a paragraph or 2 or 3, a very short written reviews. But if you want to get additional thoughts on some games I've played or finished recently that haven't quite made it onto the podcast, that's another good place to go. So check out Backloggd. And I think that's anything you wanted to shout out.
I don't think so. I think I'm all ready to go. Power out a
Sounds
nice
good.
little Sidequest episode.
Great. Yeah, so let's jump right into the news. Let's first take it over to the PlayStation world because there's been a couple shakeups in release dates. First, Forspoken, which was originally coming out sometime in, I think that was October as well. Actually, no, that was maybe November. Anyway, and in one of those 2 months, that has been kicked down the road to January 24th of 2023, so not too much longer. You have to wait. And then kind of in its place, you could say, is God of War Ragnarok, which finally got its release date after a lot of silence for November 9th. So looking at the PlayStation world, what do you think of these two kind of a delay and an announced date?
Yeah, I feel like Forspoken, I don't know. Like, they showed us that nice gameplay trailer and everything, but just for some reason, I just kind of assumed that it was gonna be touched by the delay, the hand of the delay. I don't know what it was. It was just like a little inkling there. It helps that it's actually Travis's pick for our video game draft there. So anytime one of Travis's picks gets pushed out a year, I'll take that as a mini win. And like,
you've already won that. You've already won that. Like you're already got
not
first
enough.
place.
I want to win even further.
Sure.
I want to lap all you guys. But no, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just feel like January is such a good spot for like a big PlayStation game. So I feel like this just fits. I feel like this could have been the initial release date in the first place. And then with God of War, I'm pretty shocked that it's in November. I would have assumed, like, I know that's getting pretty close to Christmas, but I still would have assumed it would have been December and then possibly January. I guess like Forspoken now has that slot, but that's a pretty sweet date, honestly. Like the only thing on the top of my head that goes to that November 9th, 10th, 11th spot is like, first of all, Elder Scrolls, but we got to wait many years before that.
Yeah.
And then is like Call of Duty and stuff. So I feel like God of War is very different from those games. It's a PlayStation exclusive. It's not an online first-person shooter or anything like that. So I think that's a really cool slot, honestly. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the Forspoken delay, just based on the wording that came with the delay, it seems like it was essentially just to make runway room for God of War to have its slot. I think that because they've also promoted a lot Hogwarts Legacy, which I don't think we have a release date for that yet. We just know it's coming in the fall. So I think they want to keep God of War away from that, and they didn't want to just double dip on Forspoken. So I think Forspoken will probably get a little bit more love in January when it's not just surrounded by big heavy hitters, as you mentioned, that are always coming out in that time slot. So I think I'm grateful for that one because I think it'll have maybe a better chance of being part of the conversation. And I think it comes out the same week as the Dead Space remake, so that's a bit sketchy for me because that's like a day one for me. So I don't know if I have enough bandwidth for Forspoken as well, but we'll see about that. And then God of War, I was like 100% in the camp that like, oh, this is getting delayed till next year, or not even. I mean, I guess they did technically say 2022. At some point, but like they never had a month or a day or anything like that. Right. But I was thinking, oh, this is one of those games like Breath of the Wild, like absolutely not coming out this year. And so I'm happy to be proved wrong. November 9th is a good date. That was originally when Starfield was supposed to come out as well, or like within that week. So that would have been savage if it was the same week. Then I don't think the retro would be happening because I would not be picking up God of War if that were the case. But now that got kicked out of this year, God of War is perfectly at home there. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, like I said, I haven't played that 2018 game. I've watched like several videos on it. I feel like I know the whole story already because I just wanted to know what was going on about it, and I never really had interest. But I don't know. I think this game will be big in discussion for Game of the Year and stuff. So I feel like it's I've played like pretty much every other big notable game of this year, so I don't want to miss just this one that might be the one game that everyone's talking about. So I kind of wanted to get back in there, and I'm excited to do that. I don't know. I was going to check the PlayStation Store because I feel like it often goes on sale. Hopefully, it's a good price right now, so I can pick it up pretty cheaply.
Yeah. Do you have like PlayStation Plus? Because I'm not sure.
I don't right now. No.
Oh, okay. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like it's actually in like the PlayStation Plus like collection of games.
Yeah. Right.
But like honestly, for myself, like I got it on sale for $5, so just keep an eye out for those. It's one of those. It's like a PlayStation Classic, meaning like they usually emphasize those on sales. It's just like everybody needs to touch these games, so they pump those sales out.
Because they always do like a summer sale, so it might be on sale right now. I'll be checking that out soon here. But yeah, I'm excited to check this out, and like I said, do a retro and then the review for it as well. So definitely look forward to some more GeekVerse content on that. And I still feel like we don't have tons of information. I also don't feel like this is a game that you need tons of information for. If you played 2018 or if you even just heard people talking about it, then all right, I'm going to pick it up. I'm sure it's going to be great. Continuation of that story, those characters. I do expect, though, that we will see a state of play that's 15, 20 minutes long that details the story and the new gameplay features and all that good stuff like they've done for Horizon. I think they did that for Gran Turismo, and they seem to be doing that for all their big first-party games nowadays. Right. So I expect that to be the case, especially because that state of play that happened last month did not have God of War. It didn't really have any other first-party things. They didn't advertise it as such, but I feel like if God of War wasn't there, it's probably because they want to do a big blowout state of play in maybe in August, maybe in September. They could even leave that till October if they want to cut it really close. I think that would be totally fine. So, yeah, some exciting news there for PlayStation fans, because I think they had a ton of stuff earlier this year, and then they have Stray later this month, which is a smaller indie thing. But I feel like fall was everyone was wondering like what's going to happen there. Like it's very, very light in terms of the first party stuff, exclusive stuff. And Forspoken didn't seem like that one that's going to send you home. So I think God of War is a good time for it to come out.
Do you know where it was that they showed off like a little bit of gameplay for Ragnarok? It was very short. It was just like a quick montage of some gameplay. I think it's gameplay. I remember like not wanting to focus too much on it because I had dipped my toes enough into God of War 1 to like, oh, I'm going to get spoiled if I see anything here. So I was trying not to look at it too much. But I was just curious of what that was, or what show that was showing.
I want to say it was their state of play last year.
Oh, okay.
On quick Google, looks like September of 2021, which that also sounds because they did like a big show on that September as well.
Right.
So I think that was the first time it was shown off, and like I don't know this because this came with a new cinematic trailer. I don't think we got any new gameplay when they announced this release date, which is once again why I think we're going to get that state of play that probably shows you a 10-minute sequence of the game, details the new features and all that stuff, which is good that they've been doing that, because that's what sold me on Ghost of Tsushima. Like those shows are really good for the people who are on the edge, or for the super fans who just want some more stuff to break down, just to keep them fed before the actual release date.
I remember vividly that Ghost of Tsushima one because you and Travis covered it, and you guys were like, I didn't even watch the trailer. You guys were just like oozing over it. I'm like, as soon as I get home, watch this trailer, and I was just blown away. And it was like what 40 minutes? Like it was a long showcase.
I think it was 20 minutes. I think it was 20 minutes. Yeah.
I double it for emphasis.
So there you go. There's some PlayStation stuff. Moving over to some Ubisoft. So Skull and Bones has been I feel like butt of the joke for the last 2, 3, you could even say 4, maybe even 5 years at this point. Yeah. Where it was announced and it was like, I don't know about this. And then it just went dark for a long, long time. Is it canceled? What's going on? We heard that maybe they restarted development on it, in the time that it came out. I think Sea of Thieves had already released by the time it was announced, but Sea of Thieves kind of elevated to that next level, you could say. But there we go. We finally get Skull and Bones gameplay, a huge hour-long video Ubisoft posted that has devs talking about it, detailing everything you could possibly wonder about the game, and it's coming out that same week as God of War, November 8th. And also, so this has been happening a lot on Sidequest, where this happened with Marvel's Avengers, where me and Travis did a podcast where we were just predicting what's going to happen next for Marvel's Avengers, and we're like, I don't know, is anything going to happen? Like, where's Jane Foster? I think we've heard about this. It's rumored. And then, the next day, they finally announced it after months of silence. Me and Taylor did a podcast, I think was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago? Whatever it was, we were talking about, what's going to happen with Ubisoft? They haven't done their showcase. And then, the next morning, they're like, okay, we're doing our showcase here, and here's Skull and Bones. So, I don't know, this keeps happening. We'll talk about this, too, with another news item that we have a couple slots down the line. But anyway, I wanted to shout that out. But, Kirklin, I know this video is long, but how much have you checked out, or any kind of impressions from what you have seen from it?
So I watched a good chunk of it. I watched a little bit of the sit down between the devs and the interviewer, and then just the initial.
Hidden in the video is an actual just regular trailer. So it's if you can get there, it's oh, this kind of gives you in 5 minutes exactly what you need to know, and then it's just surrounded by 40 minutes on either side.
Yeah, it's funny, you have to navigate for what you're looking for there. So I jumped at that point, and then I got the trailer that you laid out, showcasing the main things, and then I stuck around for a little bit of the deep dive into each the gameplay and the specific gameplay mechanics and stuff. But Yeah, no, like this is as you laid out. I just can't believe I'm actually seeing gameplay for this game. I just assumed it was like a unicorn. It's just something that people talk about. It's like, no, nobody really believes it's coming out, right? It's just been so long. Like, yeah, no, it's insane how long ago that was first talked about. It feels like before the podcast even
I believe
started,
it was 2017 is when it was first shown
yeah.
off. Yeah, so 5 years ago.
But yeah, like I think when you initially just see this concept, my mind just goes Skull and Bones, just because there hasn't really been, like, there's been pirate games and stuff, but like one focused on it, I'd say Skull and Bones definitely like is that game. And this one definitely has that vibe, but I think it does enough to kind of separate it from that. It doesn't just feel like a
Sorry, you
copy
just said
of
Skull and Bones, but you mean Sea of Thieves. Is what you're
That
saying.
is exactly what I meant. Yes, sorry.
Starts with an
First
S,
day back to
3
work today,
words.
my mind was all fuzzy. Yes, no, 100%. So like Sea of Thieves, but yeah, like I think it separates itself enough. Like Sea of Thieves definitely has that that like cartoony like aesthetic, whereas this one seems like a more realistic one. Like in Sea of Thieves, it's just like you and like your online friends, like that's your crew. Here it seems like there's actually like quite a few crew that you're controlling, or you know, you actually can kind of control them because you can control like the specific guns and stuff like that. But like I think there's a lot of really cool things in here shown, which kind of surprised me, just because I think I just jotted this game down as a meme at this point.
Yeah.
So it was good that they had like a decent showing in my opinion. I thought the interview that I saw between the devs and stuff like that was kind of fun. That them talking about the different just ways that you can pimp out your boat and different like weapons and stuff. They're talking about the Greek fire, which is just like a very iconic. Just it's basically a flamethrower out of like the front of the boat. So I think it's gonna be cool seeing like the differences on. Or maybe the diversity of like weapons and things that you can customize your ship with. Because I don't know, I didn't play too much of Sea of Thieves, but I felt like I was able to kind of go through the different ships and be like, oh, this is okay, like this is the limit for what you can kind of do for the different ships. Now I know you can like customize with different colors and everything and get wild with that.
Pretty much all cosmetic upgrades, or I think just truly only cosmetic upgrades in Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like what was shown here today, like I already would expect it to have more diversity of like weapon systems and how big ships you can have.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I don't know. I feel like for whatever reason though, like this game just isn't really calling out to me. Like it's probably not one that I'd pick up day one. I think if it's one that we can like get together with some friends and like kind of all be in like, you know, like the same thing that we did with Sea of Thieves. Like I think that's like they showcase that you can do like single player stuff in this, but I think the real kicker would be if you have like online friends to play with, for me personally at least. But yeah, all in all, like I think it was a good showing. I don't think it looked too like janky or bad. It looked pretty chaotic when they were getting into like the actual warfare of it, which like how beginner friendly is that? Is it going to be like, I don't know what the hell's going on here because it's just so much chaos. Like I hope that's not the case, because that would probably deter some people that are just trying to get into it, right? But I don't know. I'm definitely more on the positive side of this, but yeah, like I said, it's not going to be a day one purchase for me, but I hope it does well. I'm like a distant fan of Ubisoft. I'm not defending all of their games and everything like that, but like I've played a lot of their games in the past, and I really liked like Assassin's Creed. I like those, the Splinter Cells, even like the Far Cry series before it just got really diluted. Like I really like those games, so I was always kind of supporting Ubisoft in that sense, but not enough to just say I'm gonna drop a fat dollar amount on the day that this comes out, November 8th, especially if it's around those other games that I might be checking out, right? But
yeah, I think it, you know, you talked about the crew and kind of working with your team, and to me that's like one of the biggest departures from Sea of Thieves is that everyone mans their own ship in this game. Everyone's playing as the captain of their own ship. So that's where I think those sea battles are going to be like, I really like those sea battles in Sea of Thieves, just everyone doing different tasks, or one person's like, okay, I'll go down.
It's like,
I'll go down and patch the bottom. Someone's like manning the gun, someone's reloading, someone's always steering, and like that chaos is really fun. I think the chaos, these battles will be very chaotic, but it'll be in a very different way, where instead of like a one-on-one ship battle where there's 4 to 5, or I guess 4 people on a crew kind of doing all this stuff, instead it's going to be like maybe 4 or 5 different ships on your team against 4 or 5 other ones, and let's say there's NPC ships in there and a third group shows up. it will be intense. It'll be pretty crazy, and that's the vibe I got. And is that Ubisoft vibe of just like when they actually had that gameplay sequence, there was fucking icons everywhere, just like vomited all over the screen. I feel like there was very little of the screen that wasn't just covered in stuff. And I know you can either turn some of that stuff off, or maybe you need all that information in a fight. It's just a lot to handle, and I don't know. I mean, I know they're showing. That's why it's nice in a showcase like this, because they can have that cinematic trailer or that like trailer that doesn't have all that icons on it, and then they can actually show here's what it actually looks like when you're playing the game. And for me, it was a bit of a turnoff. I would like to try this game out, but I think it would have to be a Game Pass thing for me. I just can't see myself picking it up. The release date does not help in any way, but I also just don't know if I'm going to like that system where everyone's manning their own ship. I feel like I just really like what that kind of overcooked like chaos that you get with Sea of Thieves. I think is really fun, and you know, I just wonder how much fun it would be to play this as a group if you're not close to each other, and you know, playing music with each other, drinking, just making jokes and stuff like that. If you're all manning your own ships. Now, one kind of counter argument to that is that they highlighted that there is different kinds of ships, and that there's like maybe ones that go faster, the navigation ships that are, you know, more about speed. There's ones that are all really about combat focus. There's other ones that are like a haul ship, so you can just carry a shit ton more stuff than everyone else. So that'd be kind of fun to strategize your team in that way of having some guy who's kind of like your hull who has all the treasure, and then like maybe 3 gunning ships that have just all sorts of different weapons. And they highlighted that too, that there's like flamethrowers and maybe not trebuchets, I don't know why I said that, cannonballs and like harpoons, like all these different weapons. You can kind of upgrade them in different ways. So that all seems cool, but they also are really highlighting, I feel like they hit this nail a lot with the hammer of, you have to upgrade and buy this stuff, and you don't just get it like you get with Sea of Thieves, and you're getting cosmetics, like all this stuff you got to buy, and you start with a little dinghy. It's like, how much would it cost? How many hours would it take before you can have access to all these ships and do these fun things? And then it's like, well, I also want to buy new weapons, but then I also want to do some cosmetic stuff. So am I not just buying any cosmetics until I'm fully upgraded all my gear? So I think that part of it, like that balance would have to be right, because I don't think I'd want to be grinding for hours and hours. I'd kind of want this to be a game that I can just hop in with some friends and like we did with Sea of Thieves, just do a goofy stream one night and play around. It's like, how much fun would we have in one session, instead of like, you know, having to spend all these various sessions to upgrade our gear and get to that place. So I think that's, to me, a potential turnoff.
That's a good point, though, because like as you laid out in Sea of Thieves, like after having 0 minutes in that game, I jumped in and I could just pick any ship that I wanted. Which
you have
is
all
really
the
cool.
weapons, you got all of it.
Yeah. So that's a good point, because as you laid out, like they said, you're gonna have to like progress to get these unlocks. So I agree with you. I hope they have a nice healthy balance in there, because they do have to make this like approachable for someone that maybe if it is on Games Pass, it's like, oh, let's try this game out. And if it's just like the first experience is like, oh my god, I have to play like how many hours just to get the next one, like that person probably won't ever pick up that controller again to play that game, right? So yeah, I don't know, because unless it's like you do like a quest, like a tutorial quest, then you kind of get like a basic like access to like some of the basic weapons and systems like that. But yeah, because I would also want to just get some nice cool cosmetics, but am I sacrificing hours of gameplay to do that? I don't know if I'd want to, if I'm missing out on some fun gameplay aspect. And another thing too that you shouted out when compared to Sea of Thieves is like when everyone is on that same ship and everybody kind of has their own task. Like that's very fun for me. It's just you're like basically role playing as that one player or that one character on the ship. And like, although you can't have all of us on one ship, if you can have like different roles in the ships, like maybe that'll actually be fun, like doing it. But like, no, I'm just kind of.
I like that it's something different. Like it's good to have a different play style, right?
Yeah, but I can't just be on the crow's nest playing my song while everyone else is below me just fighting for their lives, you know, something like that. Because I feel like out of the two, I would prefer to be like all on the same ship. But if you're just like the cook every time you play with friends, maybe there's people out there that want to have them all in their own ship. And I like too how they showed how you kind of have to like balance the morale of your crew. That's cool. Pretty cool to me. And then you could just get like what's it called when they just like take over the ship.
Yeah, they could mutiny against you if they're not happy and well fed and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a really cool system because again,
Mhm.
like you never have
I
to
really
deal
like
with that. Yeah, unless just your friends are friendly firing with you on Sea of Thieves.
Yeah,
I feel like there's gonna be so many comparisons between those two games because those are just like the two
it's
big
inevitable.
pirates.
Yeah. I'm really curious how that crew system will work because I mean one good thing about it for sure is that it is a lot more realistic. You know, in whatever in actual history, pirate ships were huge and have tons and tons of people on
Yeah.
them. Sea of Thieves really simplifies it, which adds to its gameplay. But this could be a bit more realistic, and I'm curious how those mechanics of organizing your crew will work in this game. If that will still be this balance that you're always like tending to, of like, okay, I need to make sure I'm getting people to load up these cannons. If like the firing, it seems like aiming and stuff is I don't know. I guess you could maybe manually do it. Maybe you can also just auto aim in a way. People like I don't know if you will have people who are repairing the ship if it's filling with water and stuff like that. But it seems like you're not you're not doing those individual tasks. You're controlling those crews. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious how that will work and if you still feel like you have, let's say, half as many people as you wish you had, and that would be a thing of like, okay, where do I allot? If I have 50 people, I'm going to allot 20 on the guns, 20 down below, like that kind of thing. I'm really curious to see how that goes because that could still be a really fun system. It's different
Right.
than organizing with your friends, but that could still be a really fun balance of trying to get all that right in the heat of battle. So I'm
Yeah,
curious to
absolutely.
see how that works. And then they also showed a lot of kind of the different states you can be in. So you can just be zoomed out third person where you're controlling your boat and doing some tasks, but you can also go first person either to control the wheel or like things like hunting they showed you could do, like hunting alligators and hippos and whatnot to get resources. There's a lot of resource gathering, so expect that kind of thing in here. It's definitely into that Ubisoft ethos. I'm doing other things like that, and then you are kind of in a third person's perspective from a single person's view. You're captain when you're at these outposts, when you're going around buying stuff and selling things and whatnot. So it seems like there's quite a mix of play styles there. So I imagine that keeps it nice and varied. Whereas in Sea of Thieves, it's always a first person view, no matter what you're doing.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
when you're like controlling the ship, right? You're still there on the ground level of it. Whereas obviously Skull and Bones really zooms out, so you can kind of see more of what will be these like massive battlefields in the ocean, right?
Yeah, and I think I prefer that view, especially if you just have like a nice big galleon ship just like
Mhm.
going through the water, able to see more. That's always better in my eyes. And I, it's funny, I didn't even think about it till now, but like, have you ever played Assassin's Creed Black Flag?
No,
That was like their pirate one.
I have
Okay.
not, but yeah, it's definitely on my backlog of all the Assassin's Creed games. Don't really care too much to go back to them, but that is the
Yeah.
one that I feel like I need to knock off my list.
It's funny. That's like one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games, and it's one of my favorite for the reason that it doesn't even feel like an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
like you're literally just a
Just
pirate.
a pirate game. Yep.
Yeah, and you just go through sailing the seven seas, and you have I don't know if you go through all the seven seas, but you have like sea shanties that your crew just like starts chanting.
You go through 6, and the 7th one is DLC. You got to pay
It's
20
DLC.
bucks
It's
for it.
yeah, paid paid wall there, but yeah, like I just love that feel of like you're just out on the water and you just have your crew of like ragtag pirates and they just start singing their sea shanties and it's just you get that vibe and it's just so fun. So I didn't even think about it now, but like that's also Ubisoft. So here they're doing a dedicated pirate game, and in that one, the reason why I brought it up was because the combat in that one, you would basically like. Because you're obviously the captain of the ship, and then you have your crew. So then to fire the guns on the left, you just kind of like aim your view to the left, and then if I remember correctly, it's like L1 is to do like the side shots, and then maybe it's like another trigger to do like a different type of attack from that angle.
Right.
But it's just depending on what side of the ship you're actually angling at. But in this one, it seemed like instead of just shooting like one button to shoot all the guns on the left, like when they zoomed in, it seemed like like the guy was kind of like shooting off like each cannon like individually.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be like a little bit too micro intensive for me, honestly, because it's just like which one do I shoot off right away? But maybe there is an option to just fire them all off right away, and maybe as you laid out, like maybe you can actually dedicate people. It's just like, hey, when a ship is in your view, you just shoot. Like you don't need me to highlight this person and click this button. So because it definitely seems more complex than what was shown in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And at the time, like Sea of Thieves wasn't out or anything when that game was released. I'm like, man, this is like the best pirate game out there. Like this is fantastic. Ubisoft should do a pirate game. And that's probably when they started Skull and Bones.
That's true.
all those years ago.
Yeah, I feel like there hasn't been enough pirate games. The other thing that PvP is definitely a big deal in this. They're highlighting it, but they also made a note of saying that you can play in PvP servers or you can choose not to if you don't want to. So that was an issue people had with Sea of Thieves, is that you can't turn that part of the game off. you're always gonna have to engage with it. So if you're playing against people who are really good, they'll just kind of wreck you, and you can't just choose to go on this solo Captain Jack Sparrow adventure if you want to. You kind of have to play within that. So I like the options here, because I like I said, if this is a game that I just want to jump into every once in a while, and I'm not gonna be hardcore playing it. I'm gonna be under leveled, but also I'm just not gonna be as good like skill wise as the other players who are playing it a lot. So it'd be nice that if maybe there's some DLC that comes out that looks really cool, a certain storyline, or if I just want a chill evening sailing around, I can just turn off that PvP feature and play on my own for a bit. Or we could go in as a GV crew and go do our own adventure in our own like private server, so to speak. So I like that the options there. That's cool because the multiplayer combat looks so intense that I don't know if I'll be able to keep up with the people who are going to be playing this game 24/7.
Yeah, that's something that if they can have PvE and PvP, I feel like everybody should just do that, because there's some people that maybe they just have terrible internet and they don't want to just be bottlenecked by that, right? Or maybe some people just don't like good example is like Deathloop. Like, I love playing that in the PvP mode, but then there's some times that I just want to kind of explore and not have to worry about someone invading my game. So it's so nice when they actually just have the option there, because many different gamers, different play styles.
Exactly. So any final thoughts on Skull and Bones? Like I said, November 8th is the release date on that one. Because of its proximity to God of War, I don't know what kind of coverage you can expect on GeekVerse. If it hits Game Pass, I'll absolutely be playing it. If not, it'll be a hard one for me where I'll probably wait until it's on sale, which Ubisoft games often go 80% off within like a few months. But I don't know. I don't know if Taylor might be picking this up. I gotta ask him actually, because if he is playing it, then we'll definitely get his opinions on the podcast. But any other thoughts from you on this at this time?
Nope.
Okay.
We're all good.
Let's jump to our first ad break then, and we'll come back and we have some more trailers and release dates to talk about. We are back. Let's go into the Lord of the Rings Gollum, which got a new gameplay trailer recently. This is coming out September 3rd, 4th. I forget which day exactly. It's that week that the TV show starts, which I love that timing. It's a great way to tie that in. Obviously, me and you are going to talk about Lord of the Rings games next week, but let's talk about Gollum a bit here, which got its gameplay trailer. We have seen a little bit of gameplay before, but this was definitely the longest like individual gameplay sequence we got, and even though it's only like a minute and a half. But where are you at with this game? Seeing a little bit more here today, and I feel like we got a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with here in terms of minute-to-minute gameplay now.
Right. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I feel like way back before we even got like an image of it, just the idea of a Gollum game was definitely interesting to me. I definitely would have assumed it was going to be like a stealth exploration type game. And I think there's definitely like a place for that genre. Like even if you're not like having combat in here, it seems like you can kind of like stealthily take out some people, so that like it's a limited combat system. But I think there's totally a place for that, especially in a world like Lord of the Rings, like the Tolkien's universe. Like just exploring that through Gollum's eyes, like that's very fascinating, because he was on such a different like travel path that, like the Fellowship wasn't even aware of, right? Like obviously he interacts with our two favorite hobbits, or maybe don't want to speak for you, but seriously, some of our favorites hobbits.
I love Sam and Frodo. They'd be my two favorite.
Yeah, okay.
I'll agree with you on that.
Perfect. So our favorite hobbits, like we know what happens when they interact with him, but just through his own travels. Like I think that's so fascinating. When we got like the first image of him, I was a little just like, what's going on here? Like it's a choice. It's not the worst looking character model I've ever seen in my life, and now that I've seen like more gameplay, it's like, okay, this is like fitting their aesthetic that they're kind of going for. It's not just Gollum that looks weird. He does look strange compared to like the version that we've seen, but I think it fits like the art style that they're going for with the world around him. Like he doesn't seem out of place when you see him, like whether he's around orcs or just different areas of Mordor and other places in his travels. Because in this trailer we got to see like two more characters. I think you get to see a blue wizard. And
I was wondering, like, is that supposed to be Gandalf, who's just looking a bit different? Because they do say, you're gonna go to some iconic locations and familiar characters, and I don't know. Maybe we see Arwen as well in that one shot. Do you think that's Arwen?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up just because I've only seen the trailer once, and it was a quick shot, and I just saw the blue hat, so I just assumed it was a blue wizard.
Yeah, it's definitely blue, but I feel like other than that, He's like got the gray beard. Even like the hat and all that look exactly the same as Gandalf's too. That's why, aside from the color, I didn't know if they're just saying that Gandalf this week decided to wear some new threads, which is not something he often does in the canon that I know.
Absolutely not. Yeah, it's interesting. It definitely looks like like Arwen or something. There's some elf lady.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because they didn't say like where in the timeline this actually is taking place, right? I'm assuming it would have been.
Yeah, what is the Steam description? Had something in there that told you like roughly. I think. Let me pull that up and see if we can get a little bit more info from that. But yeah, I mean that's one of the issues I'd say with this trailer is they say that this is like, and they have every buzzword in there where they say this is like a narrative action RPG. I don't know where the action or the RPG is in this trailer. I also don't know where the narrative is because I don't feel like they're really talking about that or showing that in this trailer. Now this was specifically a gameplay trailer, but I feel like while you're watching Gollum crawl around and do stuff, you should kind of give lay down the law of okay, what exactly is the story of this game to get you hooked in there.
Yeah, because in the description it says a little bit like revealing more about his time as a slave below the Dark Tower, which would have been when like the forces of Sauron captured him, and then he revealed that Baggins has the ring, and then like you see that in Fellowship of the Ring, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got the image here. It's really interesting. Like, and again, because they've changed the art style a little bit, the characters might not be the easiest to discern. Because there's this one elf-looking character who might be a wizard, but like he's got like trees coming out of his hair. I almost want to say he's
Radagast
like, one
vibes.
Say it again.
Because if trees coming out of that makes me think of Radagast, maybe.
Radagast, yeah. I feel like he would need a beard though.
Okay.
I don't know. Like he looks kind of elf-like, just like the slender face and stuff. And I feel like the only one I can really think of that might fit that description is if his name, if I remember it correctly, like Thranduil, like Legolas's father.
Cool.
Well, he was in the Hobbits, wasn't he? I haven't seen the Hobbits.
Oh, I mean, he probably was. I did record those retros, but that was years ago, so I don't even know.
So it could be that character, and I guess that would fit because I think Gollum got kidnapped, like taken by the Mirkwood elves. So that would have fit there if that is the character that I'm thinking of. And maybe this is Gandalf, actually, because Gandalf definitely was one that he sent Aragorn to go capture Gollum. He knew that he was a person of interest, so he was one of the main persons to put attention on Gollum. Like, we need to find out where he is and capture him and then get more information out of him. So that would actually fit, especially if this is along the timeline of like the Fellowship. It would make sense that is Gandalf, which would have been I mean, I love Gandalf. He's one of my favorite characters ever, so I don't care if he's in every single like Lord of the Rings project. Some people might be like, oh, just introduce new characters. Gandalf's fantastic. I want more Gandalf. So I think that would be cool. He looks a little bit different than the versions I've seen, but nothing wrong with that. Like, Gollum looks different than I've seen in the past. So I think that's cool. And then just like tying back to like if that is the general idea of the story, is that it's in that time frame. I think that's cool, honestly, and I think I'm more sold on that aspect than like what I've seen so far in gameplay or just like the art style and stuff. Because I don't know, like I don't want to be too harsh on it, but like it kind of reminds me of like an Xbox 360 era game,
Definitely.
like honestly.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but they actually have. I'm gonna look it up right now because a friend of mine had a Hobbit game on like Xbox 360. I think it was maybe even the original Xbox.
We'll have to talk about this next week more.
100%. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it. I was just gonna bring it up next week, but that game was like so fantastic. And again, like I just remember playing it as a kid, so like at the time I'm like the graphics are fantastic. It's probably so dated now, but that's what this game kind of reminds me of, which. On the surface, it's not selling me by any means, but just the thought of like, okay, I'm in Gollum, like I'm Gollum, like sneaking around, and as I'm sneaking around, I have Smeagol trying to like give me some good thoughts, and then you're battling that. Like I was hoping that they would showcase more of that. Honestly,
yeah, they don't really play on that.
No,
in this particular trailer.
And in the descriptions that I've read, it seems like that's a main focus. You think that they would have shown that off, like maybe even just like an alignment bar. I feel like that would really fit. Like you're doing more Gollum type actions, so then Gollum is kind of taking over. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're trying to hold back on showing too much just to surprise people, or if like I don't know. It's weird that they have this kind of stuff in like the Steam descriptions for what the game is, and they're not really showing any of that off. I'm like 100% sold on picking this game up, and not because of the trailers. I'm just like I'm so curious, and I think I've started the animated Hobbit movie today, so like we're getting into that retro now, and so I'm just gonna be surrounded in Lord of the Rings for the next like 3 months, and there's no way I'm gonna miss this game. I just really need to see what the hell it is, and I am really curious on the narrative. But yeah, the gameplay here, it just looks like something we've seen a million times. It actually looks a lot like Plague Tale, funnily enough, in the terms of like being a stealth game that has a tiniest bit of action, but is mostly this kind of like stealth, the stealth narrative sort of game. And I'm really curious what they mean by RPG elements. Like, are you leveling up Gollum in different ways? I don't know what else that would possibly mean. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of like very obvious climbable ledges, and you're hiding between tall grass, and you're throwing rocks to get people's attention, things like that. You're climbing walls that have a very obvious like climb grid on them. So in terms of that stuff, it's like very basic. Another thing that was kind of weird is like at one point he jumps in the water and it goes first person, and you're swimming around in first person. So I don't know if that's going to be something they do more of, and I kind of am down to switch perspectives just for different scenes, but it could very well just be a water thing. But yeah, I don't know. This trailer did not give me high hopes for the game, but I am still really excited just to see what the hell it is. It's just such a puzzling project that I'm really excited to check out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I will actually check this out. It's funny, like the more we talk about it, the more I'm interested in actually checking it out. Because like, what is going on? What's the story? Like, is there actually an alignment thing? I want to know these things. And yeah, like just getting taken back into that Tolkien world, like that, I love it. It's probably my favorite like fantasy worlds ever. So I'm obsessed with it. I love it. So I definitely am like, yeah, the RPG thing. I haven't seen anything that would convince me that there's like a tree, like a skill tree, or
which I don't want to be clear. Like I am not into that for this kind of game. We don't need that.
You just like buff him into like a warrior. He's just like 1v1ing orcs. It's like, hold on, now we're
he turns back into his hobbit form for like a minute. Yeah.
It's like a good story. Yeah, it's like a really nice happy ending. He helps Frodo and Sam destroy the ring.
Definitely a divergent timeline. Like does not follow the canon. That would be wild if they went down that road.
Yeah, I'm hoping for like another trailer that really dives into like battle, like the internal struggle that Smeagol / Gollum faces. Because like it's right there in the description. It's like enter the fractured psyche of Gollum. It's like having that as like one of the first lines of your description. You would think that would be like a main feature that you would want to sell people on. But it's been yet to see. Yeah, that's very bizarre to me.
At this point, I just based on timing, I would say like maybe we get like a launch trailer. I don't know if we'll get anything else at this point in time. It didn't show up in any of the showcases. They just kind of randomly dropped this one. So yeah, I don't think we'll see too much more before it comes out. I think it'll just be like the week of or the day of, kind of a launch trailer sort of thing. But yeah, I look forward to this because we will be talking about it on the podcast, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit more next week. But let's move on to our next thing, which is another one of these things on Sidequest that we talked about. Me and Kirklin, we talked about this, and then like a few days later was announced. But Into the Breach, which we were talking about because you've been playing FTL, and then I was like, I've been playing Into the Breach. You got to play that. Great game. And then just a few days later, randomly, Into the Breach is getting a free update, or I guess the advanced edition is what they're calling it as well, with a bunch of new features that, just randomly 4 years after its release, just a free update, which is really cool. To me, as someone who's already just had, hundreds of hours, or at least maybe around 150 hours worth of replayability from this small $12, $15 game, to have a bunch of new stuff to play with is very exciting for me. There's, a few new kind of class sets, looks like new objectives, and some things like that. So I'm very excited for this. They also, with this, announced that it's coming to phones, which I think is actually a great place for this kind of game. This is very simple, graphics very simple, and all that. So I think it will work well there. And then it's like it's tied up with Netflix in some way. So I guess you can play it through the Netflix app specifically. I don't know if you can do that on like TVs and stuff, or that's just for the phone app. So I don't really care about that part of it necessarily. But I mean, it's a free update. You can't complain about this. All the new stuff I was just jazzed over. And then with this, they also announced that they're doing a limited physical run, which the game never had. And even though I've already own this game, and the physical version's like twice as much as the regular game costs, I bought it day one. I was so excited for this because it comes with some cool little stickers, and I don't know, it's just one of my favorite games ever. So I really want a physical version, and I'm happy to give them more money because I feel like I've robbed them for only spending like $12 on this game for how much I've gotten out of it. So I don't know, Kirk, this is maybe a good time for you to jump in to check it out, especially because you have Netflix, so you can potentially just play this for free. So that's pretty cool.
That's really cool. It's very bizarre, but yeah, it is very cool. And I mean, yeah, just huge. Who's the developer of this game?
Subset Games.
Subset Games. So like, huge shout out to them because as I was mentioning last time I was on Sidequest, like I was jumping into FTL, and they had like just an advanced version that I never paid for. It just added so many new things, different alien races, different like hacking mechanics, like a lot of different things that I'm like, I feel like I should be paying for this. Like, as you mentioned, like I feel like I'm just robbing them here, but like they're just they're making fantastic games and like just putting out free content for it to just keep it supported, which is just fantastic. So I can't wait to jump in this. You've given it extremely high praise, and I really love FTL. I love the art style too for Into the Breach. It looks really cool. I watched a little bit of gameplay.
Nice.
It was like $17 on Switch. So I'm like, maybe I'll wait for a sale here, but who knows? Maybe I'll just have to get the physical because I always love me some good stickers.
Yeah, you might want to get in there then. I can send you the link because you might have to kind of order that in advance. It might have like a hard cap on it, or I think they're still taking pre-orders and it's shipping in like November or something. So it's not actually shipping with this like new release date, which is July 19th for this new content. But
this is awesome.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like you can get the game now, and then you get all that free content, whatever that's in there already, and then the physical will come down the road. So like I don't even think I'll ever plug in the cartridge into my Switch. I just want the case there to put on my shelf. So
I love
that's pretty exciting stuff. And the only thing I'm kind of curious about is, well, I guess two things. One is there is only so many kind of upgrades and such in the game as it is. So if you're, let's say, playing as you have a certain character in one of your mechs, and you have a certain like build going on, and if it's a roguelike, so obviously you're always just getting dealt random stuff. I feel like it might be harder if you're trying to get a certain build because now there's just going to be more things in that pool. So I'm curious how they balance that. But I mean, it was always the odds were always so low that you could get a certain thing anyway that you're not ever really building for a specific type of mech. It's just not possible because of how little you get offered new things. But I wonder how this will do. And yeah, I just wonder if it'll make the game. I think they're adding a new difficulty actually, which is crazy because the hardest difficulty. I mean, it's possible. I've beat the game a few times on it, but I don't know. That's going to be just cranking it up a whole nother notch that I'm excited to see. But yeah, I'm just wondering, like, too, with these new classes and new weapons in there, if the game will be harder than it was already. I mean, there's easy mode. You can always play on that, which makes it better. But yeah, I'm curious, you jumping into it for the first time, how your experience will be. So hopefully you do pick this up and we can talk about it when you're on Sidequest at a relevant time. So that'll be exciting.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, always good to get some free content for one of your favorite games of all time. Let's talk about Skate. Skate 4, which they're just calling Skate, so I don't know if this is kind of like in the reboot territory where they just use the same name that they've used before. But they released an update for this. Is not a release date announcement. This is really, I mean, there is some gameplay in there, but they're literally calling this the pre-alpha. Specifically 3 pre's on there. And you can tell why when you watch the video because there is just a lot of textures missing and things like that. You can tell that they are still working hard on this game, but it is not, close to being done in any way. But I want to talk about this a little bit because, I mean, both you and I are both fans of this, and I really predicted, I thought we were going to see this somewhere in Summer Game Fest, but obviously it's not quite ready enough for that. But they did this to get some people in to do essentially like a closed alpha. Where they want to get some early impressions on it, which I think is cool. Like, I'm down for that. Get people to see how it feels. There's really not too much to dig into just because of the lack of really much in there. But to me, the one kind of new thing is that they seems like they've added some parkour kind of features to the game. That was really the only new thing for me. But what did you think of this video, and what do you think about those parkour features they showed off?
Yeah, when I first saw because you had in the show notes for this, and it was like pre alpha. I'm like, oh, is he just like being hyperbolic here? Like, okay, let's. And then I booted up the video, and yeah, sure enough, it says right there the pre alpha, and I was kind of surprised, and I kinda chuckled because they really just like met the joke head on and just just embodied it and be like, hey, like we're very early. It's we're
Yeah.
working on it, but still very early. I agree with you. I think it's cool that they're trying to get people in like at this stage just to get, I don't know if it's first impressions or like trying to stretch. I can't imagine they'd be testing out like an online feature if they barely even have like do you think it would be how many people would be in like one game at a time, or just one person plays this like demo sort of?
Yeah, I'm guessing there'll be some multiplayer aspect of it, just so they can test that out early.
Right.
But it probably also just for general game feel. But I feel like they're probably not going to deviate too much from how the games felt previously, because there's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what surprised me is like I think the last one was Skate 3, and that's like a Xbox 360 era game, so it's probably dated now, but like I just always thought the mechanics were very smooth. Like it always felt very good. So I wouldn't think that they would have to like completely restart that. So when they showed off certain stuff with like no what would you call it? Like no textures basically.
Yeah.
It's just like the grid format thing. I was just like, oh, it seems like they're very early, like still trying to get the gameplay mechanics down, and I don't know anything about video game making, so like again I'm totally out of my wheelhouse here, but it just seemed like they were just starting like I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. Just it just seemed very early from the point that I thought it would be at.
To be clear, there is some parts in this trailer that actually are completed environments, so it's not all like that. It's just there is a lot of gray boxes and stuff. So I mean, it's not like they are just started last week or anything like that. They do have some areas complete, and maybe they're still trying to hold back on showing too much stuff that until they actually have like a trailer, and they're just trying to get the message out there. And I think the more they show the gray boxes, the lower they set expectations. So maybe that's part of it too. Is just like, don't see this as the game's coming out next year and we're getting ready for that, because I think it'll be at least 2 years, I would say, before we even hear a release date, just based on what we saw. But I mean, it's always hard to say. It could be 3 years or more, but they've already been working on it for I think 2 years. So interesting that this is kind of what they had to show now.
Yeah, and like getting back to when we were talking about the pre-alpha test, and you mentioning there'll probably be an online portion. I feel like definitely now that I've been able to stew on it for a few more minutes, it definitely makes sense, that aspect, because as the skate games got on, like by the point of Skate 3, I remember there was a really big emphasis on the multiplayer aspect of like skating with friends, and like compared to the first game, like I don't even know if it had an online system, but it was day and night difference from the point that we got to Skate 3. So that would make, and like a lot of portions of this game was like a lot of people all together, so they probably are gonna be focusing it on that aspect of like, this is a skate city, and like everybody is kind of in there doing their own stuff. To an extent. You can't make it insane, because then people will just be trolling each other, pushing each other when they're trying to do tricks and stuff. But yeah, like for the mechanics of them like doing the tricks and like landing and like just having like the skateboarder like actually react to the physics, like all that stuff looked really good, and it's nothing. I feel like not really anything I haven't seen from the skates before, just because like from that first skate game, like comparing that to like a Tony Hawk, like it was just such a day and night difference of like, oh my god, like you can actually really manipulate the board, and when the way they land, like it just feels so realistic. When this eventually drops on next gen, it's gonna be on a whole nother level. But I feel like I appreciated this video though, just being like, hey, we're working on it. It's nothing that I didn't know already, because I don't know if it was a year or so ago, but they just had like skate, we're doing it or something like that, right?
it was an interview. Yeah, it was very strange. As far as the multiplayer stuff, I feel like they could do some really cool stuff where, think about like a Death Stranding kind of system, where in Death Stranding you're placing ladders and that kind of thing, bridges.
That's a good point.
I think that could be really cool in Skate, where maybe someone set up this little ramp into like this dumpster into this grind, and it's just like this small little sequence or something like that. I feel like that could be really cool, of having the world change in those ways where people are adding things like that. So I think that could be a cool way. Multiplayer could be integrated past just like seeing other people in the world. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I hope they do something more creative with the online than just have random people cruising around. But honestly, I don't really care too much. Like, if it's just Skate 3, but a new map with new areas to play with, and just refining some of the controls and all that, refining some of the features, faster load times, that's really all I need. Like if they had done like a Skate like 1, 2, 3 almost like remaster where they just combined the games together and like up-res them and like increase the controls, I think I would have been totally fine with that too as like a new Skate experience. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do in terms of like the scope of Skate 4 past those like basic gameplay features and what they go for. And with that is like those parkour mechanics, which I don't know how I feel about this. Now, obviously, it's like kind of an opt-in, opt-out thing. You don't really have to engage with the system if you don't want to. And I think in some ways it could be cool of like combining a skate trick with, I don't know, like, wall running in some way. I don't know. I guess I feel like if they didn't go down that road, I would be totally okay. So I don't know how I feel about it. I just want to see how much they really try and highlight it. I get they want to do stuff that's new, but I feel like in a skateboarding game, I don't think parkour needs to be your new feature. I don't know what else would need to be because I feel like they kind of covered a lot of the stuff you'd expect in a skateboarding game. But
right.
Yeah, the parkour, how did that hit you when you saw that? And they only show a little bit of it, so.
Yeah, they show a little bit. They showed enough to really make it feel like hardcore parkour,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I completely agree with you. I feel like if it's something I didn't need. I also completely agree with what you said of like if this was just a remaster of the 3 games combined, I would have been completely fine with that because I feel like they already came in first in that race. Like they already did such a good job on those.
And like I don't know if I've ever played Skate 2. Like I know I've played 1 and 3.
No, I definitely haven't. Yeah.
Not sure if I have. So it's like that is a new game just waiting for me, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But with the parkour stuff, like I think it could be cool if like you actually have to like parkour to this area to like access a different, I don't know, like maybe you have to parkour up this wall, gainer off this fence, like get into this this like rooftop like pool, like I think that could be really cool that you have to skate around in. But if it's just in there to like, I don't know, like a new feature that you could maybe throw a combo in with some parkour. I feel like I'm actually a bit of a thumbs down on that because I think what makes those games really cool is, okay, yes, they have like the 100-foot jumps that are completely like unrealistic that some people make, but like at the end of the day, it's still just, it's a skateboarding game. Like it's a skate sim. Like it's supposed to be just like recreating that. But if you're like, okay, now do this kickflip 360 into like a wall run and then grind, and it's like that's like that, like if people are abusing that to like just like win an online,
Right.
I don't know, 1v1 type situation. Again, random example I pulled from the top of my head. I feel like, okay, so now I love skateboarding and I could get good at the skateboarding aspect, but I'll never reach that that MLG level if I'm not incorporating these parkour moves. That is very unskate-like, in my own opinion.
The idea there of just like being able to get to different places, I think that's interesting because something like if you could just climb up on top of all the buildings and some of them might just have like there's maybe just like an air conditioner you can like grind off of,
right?
Or you're like doing tricks from building to building and maybe you can put a rail in between them, like that's cool. And if you can use parkour to actually access those different areas, I think that's like potentially a really good idea. But you also look at it like Skate, the first Skate, you could not get off your board. And I don't know where Skate 2 went on that, but then Skate 3, you could get off your board, you can run around, all that kind of stuff. You can throw your board, you can just run around without it for a while. So I guess this seems like a bit of a logical progression. Now, I wonder if we'll ever get to cars where you can drive around, which honestly in Tony Hawk it's janky, but like I love driving a car, like it's a fun thing to do. I don't know if it's something I need, but I'm curious where they go in the future of Skate if they keep upping the ante in terms of how much movement options you get like off your board.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have much else to add on the parkour. It was wild. There was like one dude doing like a monkey bar type thing.
Yeah.
I think he like chained into like a backflip. It was just like,
right.
This is wild here. But like Skate is the type of thing. I'm still baffled that they weren't just pumping out like 10 of them by now. Like I feel like it had a decent fall. The numbers probably weren't as high as I imagined them, but I just feel like everybody that played those games, like it left an impression on them. So this is definitely one I'm going to be getting, in 2 years, whenever it drops. But I'll definitely be dropping some money for it because I love Skate, man. I've been out of it, and like I don't even have my Xbox 360 here anymore, so I can't even like play the old ones.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah, I mean, Skate 3. I don't know if the whole trilogy is, but is on Game Pass with EA Play.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I would if Skate 4 ends up day one Game Pass, like that would be great. I would love to experience it that way and have more people playing it. That works well with the multiplayer and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it'll be an easy pickup for a lot of people in the future, which could be good. That could be like a better way to get a lot more people in the door who are maybe kind of stale on the skateboarding. And there has been a lot of other skateboarding games that have risen up in the meantime, one we're going to talk about in a minute here. So let's take our second ad break. We'll come back and get into our next segment. All right, we are back. So, like I said at the top of the cast, originally I had this idea for a topic, which was the top 10 game announcements from June. It's now like midway into July, so we're just going to call it the top 10 game announcements in the summer, kind of underrated announcements. And now I say that because we covered the Xbox Showcase, the Sony State of Play, the Nintendo Direct, and what was the fourth one that we covered on the podcast? So I guess Summer Game Fest kickoff event. We covered all those on the podcast. But in the meantime, there's a lot of other showcases that happened that just didn't really get the same. I mean, a lot of people still talk about them in their own circles, but didn't quite get the glamour that those other ones did. In the Guerrilla Games Collective, the Wholesome Games Direct, Capcom did a showcase, PC Gaming Show, Devolver Digital, Future Games Show. These all happened in June. And I mean, some of them went under the radar. Others, you probably heard about some of these games, but we're just going to talk about the ones that stood out the most to us from these showcases. So, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to have some of these trailers playing so you can follow along. And I think Kirklin can pull that up now. He's going to help me out with this since I have so many tabs. But let's jump to Skate Story first because we were just talking about Skate. And so this is a game that is very much a skate-like, session-like skateboarding game. So more on that camp than, your Tony Hawk. But it just has a very unique aesthetic to it. How do they describe it? They say that you're a demon made of glass and pain skating through the underworld, which I just love that description. But Kirklin, I don't know how much you've played of these other non-skate / Tony Hawk skateboarding games because there's been a few in the last few years. But what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this one it kind of blew my mind, honestly. Like, the visuals are so crazy. Music is wonderful.
Yes, music's amazing.
I think it's just like a band or like a group that's doing like the music. They show them in the early part of this. I guess I can rewind here. Blood Cultures with music by Blood Cultures. So I don't know if they do all the music there or if it's just like they're the main focus of it. But the music in the trailer was fantastic. Yeah, like the visuals. It's wild to me, man. It's like Dante's Inferno mixed with like something. I love the blood moon in that last image, and I love how your character just has like a cape too. It's like not necessary, and he's like wearing skate shoes, but like that's like the only like the skate shoes and the skateboard are the only thing that's really like feeling human. Like everything else is just completely wacky and crazy. But the gameplay alone, like I'm actually getting like skate vibes here of like man, like it looks pretty smooth. Like when he lands on the trick, like you can see the character's like the physics of his body shifting and the way that he manipulates the board. Like I was actually really impressed how good that looks. Yeah, so on the skateboarding side, it looks like a really great skateboarding game. And then everything else is just like I feel like this is gonna be a trip. Like I just I'm in it for like the experience and like the crazy visuals and audio. So I'm glad you put because you sent that one to me I think when it was first shown and I was very. This was
from the Devolver Digital showcase, which fits. This is a very Devolver Digital kind of game in terms of the vibes, and you mentioned the music, and it really stood out to me because it kind of has like this like indie rock sort of vibe, like kind of like MGMT or something like that. But then it has like those kind of 90s / early 2000s kind of guitar riffs in there, so it's definitely fitting for what is this weird, like trippy game, but then also is specifically a skateboarding game. I also love that because your character is glass. When you bail, you just like smash on the ground into a bunch of pieces. Like that's really creative. I was randomly thinking about this recently, where I was like, man, they should just make, and by they I mean just anyone should make a snowboarding game, but instead of like snow, it's just like black powder or like I don't know, just random like rainbow colors. I just think that'd be a fun way to mix it up, and I feel like that's exactly what this game is, where it's a skateboarding game. It's like session. It's like skate. It's like those games that you love, but it just has a weird-ass aesthetic and makes it stand out. But the gameplay is all still there. So that gets me pretty excited. And I also love the camera work in this. I think that's something that, if you look back to the Tony Hawk games, it's very much just a generic third-person camera. It's zoomed out. It's a video game camera. But Skate, what that tried to do is it kind of had like the options where you could have like the low-down camera that's trying to replicate what like actual skate videos are like when there's a second skateboarder or person filming the experience. They're following you on your line. And I feel like this the way the camera follows the character in this trailer fits that aesthetic as well, and it goes beyond that too. But I feel like it adds a lot of maybe tension to these scenes. So I feel like there's just so much going on here that I'm really in love with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's there's this one section here where our main character, he's doing like a line, and then there's like, yeah, this one right here with the gem like spotlight on him. It seems like that's how you kind of like defeat an enemy or something. He because he like lands the trick and then it explodes. I think that's really cool. And again, I imagine it's just gonna be like various levels that you're skating through. When you bail, you lose, or like different enemies can kind of knock you down. But so like nothing. Like it is pretty crazy visually wise, but I feel like if it's just like you go through these levels, like it's nothing too unheard of before. I think that'll be very fun though, honestly.
I'm really curious on the actual controls of it. Like, does this have the skate like flicking controls, or does it have a more traditional like just button pump system? We don't really obviously see anything like that in the trailer, but I'm really curious because I think that's what would set it apart. Because I really do like that skate system, and I think you can innovate on it in different ways, but I also feel like you just kind of take that system and then you put your own like aesthetic on it, and then you're good. Because that way the skate system works is great. I mean, Tony Hawk is fine for what it is, much more arcadey. But yeah, that's maybe the thing I'm the most curious about is like the game feel of this and how does it play.
Yeah.
Because even then, like if this is an indie developer and it's a small team potentially, you know, you can rag on EA all you want, but it is a big AAA studio that was able to make these games, and where you can have teams that are working only on the game feel of it and people working on the environments, whereas this is very much going to be a smaller game. So are they going to be able to get that same sort of fidelity that you expect from a AAA game? Hard to say.
I mean, I hope so, because like if you're just going, I can't imagine like the story, like it takes very long to play through the whole game, you know, a handful of hours or whatnot. But if there's a lot of like room for creative tricks and stuff, like that'll make me like go through the levels. And I feel like whenever I have a game like that, or like there's set levels, like I might want to just perfect it, you know, like just have that perfect line, and then maybe it went well, but I didn't land that trick perfectly, you know. that goes back to my skate days. I used to redo that all the time. I would just try and like have that perfect line. So if like I think this game was definitely going to have that with just what was shown, because it doesn't seem like he's doing just like kickflip, you know, like jump kickflip. Like it seems like he's tackling different, like what's the word? Like obstacles differently, you know. So yeah,
there you go. That's Skate Story. Yeah, let's stay in the Devolver side of things with the Plucky Squire. We'll talk about that one next. And I feel like this one actually did kind of elevate beyond the noise of all the other showcases. I feel like I've seen a lot of people talking about this one, but essentially the catch of this one is that like the perspective is the character's walking into a kid's bedroom and then looking at a storybook, and then in that storybook is what you're controlling. It's like a kind of a Zelda-like top-down adventure game, but then at some point it changes and that character from the storybook jumps out of the page onto the kid's desk, and then you're walking around like a third-person kind of action game, and then you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff after that. But I mean, this game looks fucking amazing, like the lighting, the color, the fidelity of it, but it also just looks incredibly creative. So I'm very excited for this one now.
Yeah, everything that was shown like at this point, like on the 2D version on the storybook, I'm like, I'm sold. Like this looks so cool. It looks very cute. I love the colors. Everything looks really cool. Like
Great
the different
colors,
characters are very just unique. So that's fantastic. And then it just like, yeah, it jumps off the book. I guess I can keep playing the trailer here, but because like even just on the book form, like there was so much going on. There was like a puzzle that he solved. There was like a basically Mortal Kombat fight sequence, like boxing style, and he's fighting people. And then he jumps out of the book, and it just it enters a whole new plane. You know, he's now in that 3D world, and if it's that same, like there was like a game, like look at that, he's on like a cup or something right there, like that's fantastic to me. I'm getting vibes of like It Takes Two, when you're kinda, like
definitely
jumping around as like the characters there. Looks really really cool. I think I started the next one. Oops.
Go back there. But yeah, to me there's like I'm really curious how much you really are exploring this room. Like is it just the one room? Is it just kind of in the kids' room, or do you explore the rest of the house? Because that's something that just honestly makes me think of when I was a kid and I had action figures and I was playing all around the house and making levels in my mind. Like it definitely has that vibe to it, which is I think why I'm so enthralled by this, on top of like just the amazing visuals. But then you also go into like other sort of puzzles, we could say, where kind of like in Zelda Skyward Sword, where it's a 3D game, but then there's these 2D sections where you're going onto a wall, and then you're kind of playing like what is it, like a 2D platformer. And you're kind of doing this too in this trailer, where they jump into like a mug, and then like the image on the mug is like a little level that you're playing through, which probably has some reward to it. So like that part of it just seems super inventive, very creative. Really, really stands out to me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited to get my hands on this too, and just like play through it with Shay. Like, I think she'll really like this one too, for just like how cute it looks, man. Like all the characters look adorable, and just again like very unique gameplay. Where okay, you're doing sword combat, sort of like the early Zelda games where it's just like top down, but then sword combat in 3D, where it's like okay, you're doing the same thing, but it's completely different because you're in that 3D realm. Oh my gosh, I gotta turn on this replay video thing. We're not on serial cleaners yet.
not quite yet. We're getting there. I'm
no,
curious. Do you think that you're kind of doing things in the, let's say, the kids' room that maybe unlock further parts in the book, and then you go back to the book and progress? Like, is the story of this game to get to like that last page of the book, or do you think that they're just using the book to start up the game, and then the adventure all takes place outside?
Yeah, I'm curious by that, because if he leaves the book, like, and then what would force him to like have to go back to the book, like if that's another segment of the game. I'm not exactly sure what that is, because like the way that the trailer goes, it's just the book form, and then he kind of breaks out of the book, and then he's kind of doing other things there. So I'm curious how much would be that book form, and like if you do go back to it, and like to talk about what you're mentioning, like, or wondering about earlier, if you stay in the room or other places of the house, I feel like you will stay in the room, just for the fact that like the way that the trailer starts, it like takes you to Sam's room, and then it's just like this world, and it shows you a bit other places of the room itself, like what's on screen right now. But
yeah,
it doesn't look like you go to like a garage or anything like that. So I would imagine it's in that room, but for how small the character is, like there must be so many different things that you can actually do in there. So that's really cool. I really like this wizard too. Really cool character.
Yeah, I'm excited to see these other characters, because you play as obviously the plucky squire. His name is Jot, and yeah, I'm just curious to see what the story is. Because really, it's just the gameplay that really stands out to me here. And this is funny too. We talk about like Devolver has a style. Like most of their trailers for the games they publish is like black and red, very dark, a lot of blood. And this is like just a surprisingly wholesome game from them. So I'm guessing it was just so good that they can't pass it up, even though it doesn't really fit in with their quote unquote brand. But yeah, I'm very excited for this one. I don't think there is a release date. Let me do a quick Google search and see if I can find a release date. But I think it's just coming out at some point. They just say next year, so who knows when next year, but I'm very much looking forward to this one now.
And like it looks very polished, honestly, for
it does.
It not having like a set release date, just a year. Like it looks really good. Yeah, I like this. I like when he's just Jack too. He's got like no stakes.
Yeah. Yeah, it almost has like a bit of a Cuphead energy in those 2D sequences.
Absolutely, and like a mix with Adventure Time a little bit, Finn the Human.
Kirklin, I sent you a message in the private chat. Check that out. Your mic's doing some stuff. But then after that, we will jump on to the next game, which we'll go to Serial Cleaners next, because that one is what your video is telling you to keep going towards. That's the next one in the autoplay. This game has been on my radar for, I want to say, close to a year at this point. I follow the developer on Twitter, and they're always just posting like minute-long videos of different features and things like that. But this is a very interesting game in terms of the vibe and setting. This trailer is kind of showing off that it takes place New Year's of 1999, so you're going into the year 2000. It kind of has like a noir style, at least in terms of the music, a detective sort of vibe. In terms of the visuals, I'd say it's kind of dark, and it's just a very dirty game in like a very intentional way. In that you're playing as, I'm not exactly sure. My guess as what Serial Cleaners, what that means is that you are essentially playing as characters that are like sent into crime scenes after they've been done. Like definitely, like you're on the side with the bad guys. They go in, like commit a murder, commit a crime, and then you're sent in to go clean up the mess. That's the vibe I get. But I'm curious what you think about this one, because like I said, it's been on my radar for a while, but I'm sure this is the first time you're seeing it. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, my initial thought was just like how cool the angle is of like it showing you, like it's not quite a bird's eye. I don't know what you would call that angle.
Yeah, it's an isometric kind of perspective. So think Weird West, think the original Fallouts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so like that looks really interesting to me. The art style is very cool, and I like at that at that angle, that asymmetric one, or isometric, however you called it.
Isometric, yeah.
Isometric. It's like you just get a really interesting, detailed view of everything that's going on. Like you can see the room that your character's in, but like you also just see like all the other rooms of like other people might be in it, and just like you see different alleys. Like it just shows so much. I didn't get it in time. Damn it. Hell pie, we're not ready for you. But yeah, and like my initial thoughts, like it just looks very dark and like grungy, as you said. Like it's intentional because this is a very dark setting.
Yeah.
And I like the different characters that you see. Like it seems like you're gonna have very different like play styles depending on like which character you're playing as. Like there's
I'm curious, do you think those characters, do you think you have like, okay, here's your mission 1, mission 2, and then you pick which character you want to use? Or to me it seems like more that, you know, for this job we're going to send in Viper, for this job we're going to send in Bob. It seems more down that road, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're right. It seems like maybe certain characters have a specialty to tackle something, you know. So then maybe it'll be like, okay, I'm playing as this character, and then now it's time for this person to do something, and then it jumps to you playing as that character. We've seen that before in games. But yeah, I think for the world that they showcased alone, like it's very dark and not a happy place, but it's interesting to me for sure. It's something I'd want to know more about, and just how like how dark and like bad these characters seem. I feel like that'll have a good story to tell in and of itself. Like I remember that one section, there's a character who's just like cutting up a body with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's okay, we're definitely the bad guys.
Yeah, I wanted to like look at some of these characters because they kind of show them all off a little bit, and it looks like one of them named Viper, it seems like more of a hacker type. It seems like one of them named Lottie is maybe more of a nimble character, can kind of reach other areas that other characters can't. And then you mentioned Psycho, and that's a guy who's like, you see him attack a cop at one point, you see him chop up a body, so it seems like a different style, whereas all the other characters are just like picking up and moving the body to hide it, whereas he's like, the best way for me to do this is to chop this body up and put him in a bag, throw it over my shoulder kind of thing. And then the other guy who... his name is Bob. He, to me, seems like the boss. He's like on the cover of the game, too. So I don't know what his specialty is. I couldn't get a vibe for that, but maybe he's kind of more the one who's sending out these people on their missions. I'm not too sure. But yeah, you're like vacuuming up blood and moving bodies around. It's very dark in the way you're like, in the like the play style of it, obviously. But yeah, it just kind of got like the stealth system to it. Not so much on the action side. Like we do see, like I said, Psycho throws like a brick at a cop, but there's not really action sequences. It seems like you're kind of trying to get in and out quietly, and I'm very excited for that. So this one has been like high on my radar, honestly, maybe for the rest of the year, probably in like my top 3 most anticipated games, like maybe behind Midnight Suns, maybe Hogwarts Legacy. This might be my number 3. I'm very much looking forward to this one, and
nice.
Glad it finally has a release date, which is September 22nd. I don't know if I mentioned that, but just around the corner, which is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it.
Cool. Let's jump into the next one. This one might not seem underrated, but we'll go to Resident Evil Village. It finally got this Shadows of Rose DLC announced. Now, this one, maybe was not super underrated, but, it's from the Capcom show. But I really expected we were going to see this either in Xbox Showcase or at Summer Game Fest. So I thought they just weren't going to announce it, or they weren't ready to show it, but I guess they were just waiting until their Capcom show. I guess if you haven't played the game, it might be hard to dive into the story stuff of this. If you have, there's kind of a post-credit scene or an end-credit scene that shows that this character of Rose is older. Like the story has jumped forward maybe 10 years to when she's a bit older. She's a baby in the game. And so it seems like you're kind of going back to these familiar locations, and she's uncovering a mystery of her own. I don't think we need to dive in this too much because you haven't played Resident Evil Village, but I'm very excited for this. I've been looking forward to this. I think it comes out in October, so perfectly in that kind of Halloween slot in terms of playing the scary stuff. And yeah, I think this looks really good. I'm curious how much they're going to dive into the previous locations, if it's going to be the same levels that have changed a bit, or if it is new levels that just kind of look like the old ones, maybe unexplored areas of the castle, something like that. Not too sure, but I'm pretty much I'm looking forward to this one pretty much.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I didn't even watch this trailer earlier because I was just I'm like, I'm assuming it's gonna spoil things for Village, but I think this is a fantastic idea, honestly, of just like, if it is, you just it's not even in the trailer. There you go.
I think there's like other trailers in this for other games. Like they just compiled it all into one, Capcom style. This is like the action game, yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So what the hell? Do you just play as these like villains?
Yeah, I think you do in Mercenaries, yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's a different game.
Yeah, different game, different game. Very confusing, yeah.
Very confusing. But I think the idea of what you were laying out, like if you're kind of retracing the steps of, I'm assuming would be your father from the first game, and just going to those locations, because did you love like Resident Evil 8? Did you think it was a great game?
I did. I really liked it. I think when it came down to our Game of the Year discussions, I think I dropped it at number 10, so it just snuck into my top 10. But I really enjoyed it for what it was. And yeah, I mean, when they announced the DLC, I've been very much looking forward to it. So yeah, I really like it. It's really good.
Yeah, because I've only known like a handful of people that played it, and my one buddy at work that loves Resident Evil games. Like he's played through like all of them like multiple times because he like wants to beat them on the hardest difficulty. He wants to beat them without dying. Like he's that hardcore into it. Like he will just replay these games. And he was telling me like Village, like he really liked it, but it was like he felt a little like let down was just how quickly he made it through it. Like he just wanted to he just wanted to explore more of the world. But you know, by the end of the game, it's just like, oh, that's it. Okay, now I could replay it, but I kind of want to just explore more because everything that he got was awesome. So this is like you are gonna be. I mean, if it goes that route, you're gonna be revisiting certain areas, but maybe through like a different lens, which means like you'll be seeing different sides of it, which is a great idea. It's a great idea, especially like I haven't played Resident Evil 8, but I like the castle with the big lady. Like it's just so iconic, even for me that hasn't played the game.
I know that's something I'm really curious on. Is how much they're going to go into that. They showed the Duke, who is the merchant in the base game, and he seems to be like the antagonist here, or at least one of them. So that's an interesting thing, because he was like kind of a safe haven in the original game. But yeah, I'm really curious how much they're going to dive into those previous characters if you are in their locations, because as is with these kind of games, they're usually killing off these kinds of characters. But you know, for Lady Dimitrescu in particular, like I don't know, she was such a big deal at one like Character of the Year at the Game Awards. Like I just feel like they're gonna find some way to get her back in there, and I don't know how they'll do it. But I feel like that's gonna happen. They didn't show it here, but I feel like I think they, even whatever the story they had planned, I think they're gonna find a way to bring back a couple of these characters, because a couple of them were like really fun, really fascinating. And I'd totally be down to see more of their story and what they've done in the time since.
Absolutely. Do you know if Resident Evil 7 Biohazard did that have a DLC as well?
I believe it did. Yeah, I think it was. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah.
Okay. I just wasn't sure, because when I saw Resident Evil 8 Village like DLC, in my mind it's just like, how do they do a DLC for like a horror game like that? But it makes sense that you actually be a different character. So
they definitely left it open at the end of the story, like I said, kind of hinting at this Rose character and that she would come back. And now it could have been a sequel game, but obviously they're tackling it here. Maybe she'll come back in a future game as well. I'm not too sure, but yeah, that's Resident Evil. Let's jump into the next one. Let's go to LOTR Summit Kingdom. This was from the PC gaming show. Now this is a city builder. I guess the thing that shakes it up from that formula, and this trailer is a bit weird. It's like kind of short, and there's other people talking in it, so you can cruise around if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially you're building a city, and you're kind of gradually progressing up a mountain until you get to the very peak, and you can even build on the very, very peak of this mountain. I really like the look of this. I love a good city builder. This one really stood out to me in general, just because of that mountain aspect to it. It really reminds me of some of the treks I did in Nepal. It also kind of just has like this Tibetan sort of Nepal vibe to it, in terms of the aesthetic of the buildings and whatnot. Also, your audio does sound fine. I forgot to mention that, but you sound good now, by the way. But yeah, that's this game, and it seems like you kind of have some different challenges in terms of city builder, in that you're gonna have very limited space to build, just because you're on like the edges of cliffs and things like that. But then you also got to build these big kind of sketchy bridges, these kind of hand-powered elevators that are also very sketchy. So I don't know. I just love the look of this. I can't wait to chill out and play this game, and probably end up playing for 5 hours before I realize that I've been sitting down for that long. So very much looking forward to this one.
Yeah, man, I think this is the hidden gem for me out of all of these showcases. I was so fascinated about everything about this. First of all, like I just love the architecture of like those Tibetan like mountain villages and stuff like that. Like it's just so fascinating to me how they can just like make a full village on like a cliffside like that.
Yeah.
And like that's what this is. Like it's so not these guys, but like it's just so fascinating to build on like a completely different terrain that I'm used to building on. If I compare it to, I don't know, like a Sim City sort of thing, or like other games like that where you're kind of making a village. And funny too, it's like on the weekend I was over at my dad's house, and him and I, like, you know, he taught me my first RTS, Age of Empires, throwback to those days, and he was asking me if there's a game like that, but like without the war aspect, where you can kind of just like make a civilization and like you know, resource management and stuff like that, but like not just have people like barbarians at your gates, you know, coming to burn your village down. And I'm like, oh, I've definitely seen games like that, so I'll think about it. Tropico 6 he's played, he really likes that game, so that one has a little bit of that. But like for this, I'm like, man, like I don't see anybody burning down your village. I feel like you would really like this.
We saw an avalanche. That's about as violent as it gets, it seems.
Exactly. But like I'm definitely gonna put this on his radar because it just looks really interesting. And yeah, like you see your villagers doing something. It's not like they're just doing it for fun, like gathering things. I imagine it'll help you advance. And I like how you just like, yeah, like eventually you just like build it on like that peak, you know, like you have a little temple on the peak there, and like what the different systems do. I want to know like exactly what the goal, like, is there going to be a story mode where it's like, hey, you have to do this, or if it's just like different challenges or whatnot. I'm curious to like what extent that goes to. But my initial thought, man, this blew me away. Like I was like, this looks so cool. Something else I was gonna highlight too. I saw it on the gameplay. It was when the player first puts down the right here. It shows like this bar at the top, and it shows like, it seems like a population thing, but there's 5 different characters here. The one on the right looks like a monster. I don't know if that's a Yeti or like some sort of demon thing. So
that's interesting.
I'm very interested in what all this does. Because you see your gold, and I'm assuming this would be some sort of character. Maybe these are like different people in your tribe or what. Oops.
No, I hadn't caught this before. That's a good call, because all those symbols are not like just very noticeable things. You wouldn't. They aren't obvious what they mean. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm very curious of what that entails, and honestly, just more about this game. Like, I'm glad you put it on this list, because it definitely is one that I would have missed. But it said Q1 2023, I believe, for the release date, so that gets me pretty excited too, because it's not that far away considering it's just next year. But yeah, this looks super cool, man.
Yeah, and I guess for people who aren't watching on YouTube, important to note that this game's beautiful. Like the visuals are great. Which is important for games like this, especially if you're just chilling out and enjoying your time. So, that definitely stands out. I guess if I had to compare it to any town builders, it seems to me most like Banished, which is the one I've played a lot of in terms of, just not really being combat focused and all that kind of stuff in just terms of people moving around your cities and whatnot. But, I'm really excited to check this one out. So maybe you'll be talking about it with me when it comes out starting next year.
Absolutely. It'd be cool if they have some sort of co-op thing we can build our little tribe together. And like, I'm curious how many different mountains like there is. Like, like this one on the cover right here, it seems different than the one that they showed off in the gameplay. So I do imagine that there is different maps or whatnot, or different
I wonder if they're randomly generated or if they're just like pre-designed these maps. But that's a good point.
I just love the look of when it's all complete and everything's like connected with those bridges, and it's just like
you see everyone moving around.
Yeah. Oh, that was so cool, man.
Yeah, I'm curious too, like the resource gathering element of it, because that's always a big thing of these kinds of games, is you're knocking out trees to get lumber to build your houses. But if you're up on these mountains and there's not a ton of wildlife around, or there's not like lakes that you're fishing from and things like this, I wonder how that element of it is going to play into it. And I think you can have a great resource or a great town builder without resource gathering. You can just have a fun, chill building game. But it definitely seems like there is an element of this where there is resources, as you mentioned. There's that top bar where you're worrying about money and your population and all that stuff. So we'll talk about that more down the line. Maybe we'll stay in the kind of city builder kind of things, and we'll talk about orcs next. This is ORX is how that's spelt. And I specifically put this one in here because I know you're an Age of Empires guy, I know you're a Warhammer guy, and this one seems to me like it's in that ballpark. This is more of a roguelike city builder that has kind of a deck building or a card system to it as well, where you're, I guess, building things based on the cards you get. It also has a very different art style. But what did you think about this one as a kind of I'll say an expert in this field of games?
I don't know if I'll go fully there, but I appreciate it. No, this looks really cool to me. My initial thought was like, is this like a tower defense game, or like
right,
what exactly is going
vibe
on here? Because it seemed like they had like specific pathways that they're building, like with the roads. But again, that might just be connecting their city together. But if that is the case, I love me a good tower defense game. You know, shouts out to Bloons, Bloons Tower Defense, so great.
Yep.
But yeah, like the card system in here looks really cool. I love the art style too. It's very very different, very unique. I feel like I haven't really seen that in anywhere before.
Yeah, kind of cell shaded, very cartoony.
Yeah,
simplistic.
Absolutely. And it seems like there's lots of different things you can do, whether it's like customize your city differently, or like they said, you could focus more on the defense, or maybe focus more on like your actual like battalion of units that are going to go out there and meet the enemy head on. Like over 300 guild cards, it said right there. Like it's just, it seems like there's going to be a lot of different things to explore, and like skill ceiling I feel like will be pretty damn high, because there'll just be so much that you're learning. I like how there's different factions too that have different like building styles. Like you brought up Age of Empires. I love when you pick someone like Japan and like all their buildings are like the Japanese architecture style. So I think that adds more like replayability to it, because you just like, you know, you'll have to play it more to experience all those different play styles. And I hope the different factions really play differently too. Look at that swarm, my gosh.
I know, it looks pretty crazy. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me, like they mentioned at some point in the trailer, they name drop Carcassonne, which is a board game I really love, and it definitely has that vibe.
What that was,
what does it
actually
say? Carcassonne with your table on fire. I love that. That's a great line. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Carcassonne, so that's cool to me, which is, just like placing tiles down and getting points. There's no combat in that game. Well, there's somewhat indirect combat, but it's not really combat, so this is different. But yeah, it also feels a lot like Bad North, which is a great tactical roguelike game where you're just fighting off like swarms of enemies as well. But that's not really a city builder. That's just more about placing units in the right spot. So it seems like a kind of a cross between those two things. And yeah, I think it looks really great. The card system, I think that works well for roguelikes. Obviously, there's been a ton of them that have happened, and for good reason. It just fits really well. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking out this one. And, I don't know if I have much else to add on it, because it seems like kind of a simple game in concept, but it seems like there's going to be a lot of variety, which is obviously very important for roguelikes. So, very excited for this one.
Whenever I don't know if you'd call this like a pixel art style, or like you said, like cell shaded, like something like that. I feel like a lot of these roguelike indie games, they do such a fantastic job with these like concept art type things.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a specific name for the art, but like look at this character. He just looks so
I know.
cool.
When it comes to like those things on your Steam page and stuff, I feel like a lot of people will commission something from like a artist who has a very different style. I think that's a pretty common thing to do, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, this character just looks so cool. There's like little magic book there, and like he's got the crown, but it just looks like so worn, like war. Yeah, war worn. That's two bad words to put together, but very cool game.
Let's jump to the next one, which we will go to. Let's go to Coffee Talk, episode 2. Hibiscus and Butterfly is the name of this one. So I want to bring this one up because I love the first Coffee Talk. I talked about it on the Game of the Year episode from, I guess, 2 years ago. I think it came out in 2020 is when the first one came out, episode 1, you could say. And I like that they're titling them as episodes, because the first game is pretty short. I think it was like 3-4 hours. And as soon as I was done, I was like, man, I just want more. Like, it's just like, it's structured as like days, and each day, different patrons will come in, maybe some new people, maybe familiar face, and you're just, very simple game. You're serving them coffee and other drinks, having conversations, kind of a visual novel. But I just love the kind of lo-fi chill vibes. I love the art style. The gameplay is very simple, of like making coffee and stuff like that. Game that I really, really loved, and I'm just very excited to see more of it. And it seems like you're going to get some familiar faces. They've shown a few of them now, and then obviously a lot of new people as well. And it seems like it's going to just pick up from where the first game was, in terms of, like, you're not skipping ahead years. Like, that cop looks the exact same as they did in the first game. Lua here in the trailer looks the exact same as she did. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited for this one. And they just added like a few new mechanics, a few new characters, just more writing. This one's definitely a day one for me. I'm very, very excited for this one.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have much to add because I haven't played that first one. It's been on my Steam wish list ever since you talked to me about it. I think on a Out of Mana episode possibly back in the day. But
right.
yeah, very very cool. I love this stuff. I love when it's like a very unique art style, and like a different type of game than you'd expect. Like you said, it's mostly about there's gameplay mechanics and you kind of do these things, but it's mostly about like the reading, like the characters that you're dealing with and just like learning about their stories. Like that's fascinating to me. So who knows? Maybe I have to do a double feature. Do episode 1 and 2. I'm getting defeated by this playlist thing. Keeps playing the next video.
I know some of these videos are very short, so like before you know it, they just skip along. But yeah, I saw recently actually that, and I think this is a pretty small indie team that's working on this game, and one of their members, I think it was like their head writer, passed away. He's pretty young. He's like in his 30s, I think, which is very sad. But I'm glad to see that the team is still working on their game. They still are going to push it to the finish line, even if it doesn't have that original developer on it. And so it's coming out next year is what they say. So I hope the team over there is doing well. And yeah, very excited to play their game. And yeah, everyone, like, if you just want a simple like a story, and just some lovable characters and some simple gameplay, just a chill game, I think this is definitely one to be picking up for sure. It's cheap, not that long of a game, but definitely worth every penny I spent on it. So we'll go into Odada, which is kind of next in the playlist. That works for you. This is a weird one to pick up, but I wanted to put it in here just because it is something very different. Because this is really not even a game; it's more of just like a toy. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it. But Kirklin, did you ever like back in middle school? I remember this where there was this game that essentially was like a desktop game, and it was like called the Toy Box or something like that. And you would just like open it up, and like on your desktop, you would have like. You could make like Rube Goldberg machines, like knocking over dominoes and dropping balls and make like these different levels. I specifically remember this because this is one of the few things that wasn't like blocked on our school laptops because it wasn't it wasn't like a video game. It was just like an interactive toy in a way. So I feel like this is kind of in that ballpark. And essentially just making like these little like succinct music tracks that are very simple but very cutesy art style. I just feel like this is a game I want to play with my nephew. Very, very cute. So I wanted to shout it out for being something different and unique.
It is very unique. When it finished, I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I kind of want it. It looks very cool, like very pleasing. This like the music that they have in the trailer too. It's very cute. And like let's just have more games like this. I remember back in the day, it was on one like Flash game website type thing, but there was one where like. You're basically like a rock, like you're a rock band, and then you would just make songs, but like you would just add like different like you would give the guitar like a 1 2 3 4, and like that would kind of be like his riff that he repeats, and then you just like make a song. I remember doing that for like hours, and again it was just like a random Flash game. So if I had something like this back in the day, I'm sure I could just get hours consumed in that sense. But I was very confused about the trailer in general because I was like, okay, what's gonna happen here? They're gonna explain what the big gameplay here is, but as you laid out, like it's not that. It's a toy that you just play with, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't know if this will be the most like wide range of audience that picks this up, but still, I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room for this. Like, not every game needs to have some big narrative to it. Like this is a fun game in and of itself. Just something to mess around with for an afternoon. And so I think it really comes down to how much it is. Like if this is, I feel like I might not play this game for more than like an hour in my life. I'll just check it out for a little bit here and there. So yeah, I don't know how much it is, and that would kind of sway my purchase. But in terms of the visuals, like just very cute and very fitting of like a toy box kind of aesthetic to it as well. So there you go. It's called it's Odada, spelled Oddada. Which is a bit weird. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but anyway, that's what it's called. We got 2 more here. Let's go over to the Guerrilla Games Collective, which had Above Snakes is the name of this game, which is kind of a fun name. This is another isometric kind of perspective. This is a very classic game that we've seen a lot where it's a survival crafting game, but it stood out to me. I think for that visual style, and for that isometric view, which I don't feel like we don't see too often, like most of these games, these are like third or first person. And I think this is more of a single player focused game. But it kind of like your character is what I'm assuming is like a kind of a Native American, and it has that very much that aesthetic in terms of the clothes you're wearing, the kinds of buildings you're building up, and just like in the scale of how much you're building and crafting. And you have your tanning thing there, where you're stretching out your pelts and stuff like that, doing your fishing, all that good stuff. So yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily novel idea, but I think for me it's the character, it's the setting that stand out a bit to me, and why I wanted to shout it out today. But yeah, did this one do anything for you?
Yeah, it really did. Honestly, I think as you laid out, like it's not a brand new genre that I haven't seen before, but just the way that it's done is very unique, and it breathes some fresh air into a genre that I've seen like done so many times. I like how like the map just kind of gets bigger too. I don't know what causes that map to get bigger, but I like how it like keeps like the lines in the ground too, so you can like very visually confirm of like, hey, this is that quadrant that I had in the beginning, and then you can kind of map out where you are. And I think it's really cool because it fits. Like this person just dropped some more land in there, and it doesn't just like line up perfect. Like when they drop water, obviously it lines up nicely, but you can still see that black line. And I like how you rotate the camera in such a way that you keep that isometric view, but you can still get a different angle. Like you're not limited in just having this one angle of seeing, I don't know, northwest, for example. Like I'm not just looking at that sense. I love this one line, or this one, if you're watching the video portion where she rolls away from bees. It's like, man, just like dodging attacks from those bees there. But the building looks really cool. Like all that resource gathering stuff is really interesting to me. I'm curious of just like, I don't know, like the length of what this entails. Like, do you just build forever? Is there goals where you have to, I don't know, like escape this land? Or
they're not highlighting too much of a narrative necessarily here.
Yeah. It says open alpha week is June 13th to the 20th, which we're past
that's
now.
past. So I'm sure there's some impressions out there. I'm really curious on that they show very quickly that you are placing the tiles and you're kind of rotating them that you're going to get next, which is once again very Carcassonne-like, and also like Carto, which is a game from last year. Oh my god, that might have been 2 years ago now. Which was like a puzzle game based around that whole concept. So I'm really curious how that works in terms of, are you getting tiles like, let's say maybe your objective is like create a house that's this big, or put the smelter down. Is that when you get a new tile to put down, or can you always just put down a new tile? But then like the more tiles you put down, the more potential risks there are, and maybe you won't be able to even get the resources from them yet. So that part I'm really curious about, but I think that could work well for pacing, but I think it could also work against the game in a way in terms of ruining some of the surprise of exploration. Of like, oh, what's around the next corner? Well, I already know what it is because I'm going to place it, and I'm going to have like a very, like, I don't know, I think they need to get that balance right of how often you're putting down new tiles for it to be intriguing. So yeah, I think this looks really cool in terms of that, at least the visuals and the music and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to this one. It's called Above Snakes, which I don't think has a release date, but like Kirklin said, they're doing some alpha testing, so hopefully that gave them some good information to move it towards its full release.
Absolutely.
And then the last one we'll talk about is Nivalis. I saved this one for last because
Nice.
I think this might be one of the most exciting ones for me. This is another cyberpunk game, cyberpunk sort of setting. I think we're seeing a lot of these recently. Obviously, Cyberpunk was the big one, but there's also a ton of indie games that are working in this space with this aesthetic, and this one really stands out to me. Strangely, in a way, because I feel like cyberpunk stories are usually very, once again, dirty, grungy, a lot of crime, kind of underworld stuff. This game actually feels very wholesome, and so I feel like that's kind of a jarring combination of setting, of the cyberpunk setting, but then this vibe of kind of these wholesome vibes where you're building up maybe a shop, a restaurant, you're building up this not aquarium, but like a greenhouse, and we're building different apartments, things like that, and then exploring, socializing. It's kind of got all of that in there, so it's a mixed bag, and I think because of that, it might spread itself too thin. Seems like a very ambitious game for an indie game, but if it lands, like I think this could be like a very underrated gem. Like, could be a really great game.
Oh man, I completely agree. This one very much surprised me. Because at first I'm like, oh, is this like Cyberpunk DLC or something? Because it just looks so similar to it. It's interesting because when you zoom in on like certain details, it kind of has like a Minecrafty blockiness to it.
Yep.
But like when you're looking at it from oh no, I got doomed. when you're looking at it from like farther away, like from this image, for example, if you don't look at the railing there, like it looks like that Cyberpunk 2077, I think is the year.
And
like
the characters don't have that kind of
No.
blocky pixelated
No,
part to them, right?
definitely
So it's a
not.
kind of a mix mash of styles too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this looks really really cool for me because it looks like a cyberpunk game, but then like let's say I've never played Cyberpunk, so I won't be able to pull from it that much. But like my example would be like maybe from Fallout, where in Fallout you can like build your base, but like that's not what the game is about. This game seems
Right.
like all those mini games is the game in this like
Yeah.
really vast world, which is so intriguing to me. I feel like all the wholesome stuff that you mentioned, you totally nailed it. I like how you can, like it's like a slice of life game, honestly. Like you're
Definitely,
like working
yeah.
in a restaurant, you're kind of designing things. Like once you make enough money, you can kind of like upgrade your house. I'm curious how many of those would be. I'm sure it's kind of limited because at the end of the day, this is still an indie game, but I think this is very
They hint at like relationships too, so I think there might be some maybe some dating sim elements in there too.
yeah, so like all of those little things, in my mind, I just picked those like mini games in different games, but that's what this game is, and I think that's fantastic. I think the cyberpunk aesthetic is really really cool too because everything that they've shown in this, I think it would work in kind of any era, you know, that has access to that stuff. But just the fact that it's also cyberpunk, it's there you go again. Gosh, bane of my existence. But like all of yeah, like having that with the cyberpunk, it just makes it that much cooler and more unique. And I was like very impressed with just aesthetically how it looks. You know, like this image alone, it looks so cool. And then the blockiness, it doesn't really take away from it being like, oh, it looks bad because of blockiness. Like it just gives it a little bit more uniqueness. If that makes any sense. But I like how there's fishing in there too. Like like you can grow your own plants and stuff and like that greenery setting thing there. And I love it. I hope you can like bring food to these people too. You're not just like if you ever played Diner Dash, or I think it was called Diner Dash back in the day.
Yeah.
I was getting vibes of that honestly when they were working in the restaurant.
Great game. Yeah. I really like the quick snippets they show of the actual building, like building out your apartment. I love that. I feel like it has all the details there. You're not necessarily like building out the walls and the building, but you're just kind of picking the furniture and decorating. And I'm totally into that. And you know, building up your restaurant looks great. And then even the farming ingredients part, like the greenhouse, like that actually looks like a really fun, potential like kind of mini game to it because it's actually like it's a pretty big room. You got like a lot of different things. And like you said, I hope you can like serve the people at your restaurant.
Yeah,
that just seems like it'd be a fun like thing you could just do. Like that could be the whole game for you, is building up your restaurant, or you can go off and explore and do other stuff. Like it seems like it's going to be very open ended in terms of what you want to do with the game. And I feel like the story that they highlight here, they more highlight it as like this is a world and this is a playground rather than like here's the story that you're going on. You got to build up your restaurant to this point so that you can move on to this next area. Like I think it is, as you mentioned, a slice of life kind of game, and that's very exciting for me because I feel like a lot of those elements didn't really work for me in Cyberpunk. There is a lot of great things about that game, but in terms of that, just like hanging out in your town and I don't know, building out your apartment and talking to people and doing that kind of like street level stuff, I just feel like there wasn't really a ton of that. So this seems like it will kind of fill in that void. And yeah, like the visuals, as you mentioned, are intentionally simple in some ways, but I think it also allows them to make the scale a lot bigger. And so I'm totally down with it. I think it looks great. And it's got those, you know, dark grounds and walls, but then bright lights of the cyberpunk worlds that you expect, and totally works for me.
I like how this little slogan right here, "The city is yours." It's like
essentially,
you know, like it's gonna be just a playground, as you mentioned. You can just interact with whatever you want, and whatever you don't want to touch, you probably won't have to. Like I don't think it'll be, maybe other than like an intro sequence, it won't be like you are forced to do this task because that's how you finish this quest. It's just like have fun in this world, and I think that's awesome, man. I think that's what's so beautiful about indie games is that they have the flexibility to do things like that. You know?
Yeah, definitely. So there you go. Those are our top 10 underrated summer game. And I don't got to think of some wording for this. Top 10 underrated summer game announcements. There you go. I had a bunch of other things on my list. I'll just say that the Guerrilla Games Collective I think is worth checking out because I had a few more shoutouts from that. Necrosmith looked really cool. I won't mention the others, but there was a few. And then the Wholesome Games Direct, I literally wrote down like 30 different games, and there was like, I don't know, 50, 60. Like, there was tons in there, and a lot of them stood out to me, looked really cool. I put them on my wish list or on my backlog to playlist, things like that. So definitely check out those showcases, if any. But yeah, I think those 10 are maybe some good indie highlights that probably flew under the radar. So yeah, that pretty much does it for this episode. Any closing thoughts from you, Kirklin, here before we say goodbye for the day?
I don't think so. I love this idea that you had of just like really putting a magnifying glass on some of the games that just get overshadowed by maybe those bigger titles, that everyone is talking about, everyone and their grandma has heard of, but then these smaller ones that like it's not a lack of the quality of the games. Like it's because it's a smaller studio or whatever it might be, like it just has less of a showcase for it. So I really like, again, doing this like part 2 sequence thing. The games not of June, of July, or just of the summer. Really, really great. And yeah, there's so many that just I would have missed. And like I haven't even watched all the other ones that you listed in our show notes there, but I didn't even know that there was like a Wholesome Direct. Like I thought you just wrote that in because these are wholesome games. I'm like, oh,
no, they've done
cool.
a few of them now. Yeah, they do them like maybe a couple times a year, once a year. I think they always do like that one big summer one, right. But then they have like smaller ones kind of thrown out about the year. Just subscribe to that channel because that's like where they host them. So worth doing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm so glad that Sidequest exists now on the GeekVerse channel, because I've always been paying attention to these things, talking and playing these indie games, but they just didn't really fit into our previous system of how we did podcasts. So I'm glad with Sidequest now we have the opportunity to kind of cover these games, because there's a lot of hardworking indie devs out there making some pretty cool stuff that you're not going to see from AAA space, just because AAA space has to go like big and has to do these grand things, but you can do so much with just like this little musical toy. You're not going to see Naughty Dog making Odada. Like they're not gonna have the time for that kind of thing. So thank you for covering these with me, because I know you play a lot of indie games on your own right. And yeah, you'll be joining me again next week. We'll be back talking about some Lord of the Rings stuff. So yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you then. Later.
Peace.